need to make sure that we have judges that are, like I said, working hard every day to earn the respect of the position it's afforded the position.
Yeah, he had an ethical glitch there. So.
Yeah.
Any last comments that you'd like to make to the board based on questions?
The only thing I'll say is I do understand your concern in not feeling like we put a shroud over and won't tell you who we are.
It's not a concern, it's a frustration.
Yeah, but I want to take that off the table because, like I said, I'm fine having a one-on-one conversation with a friend. I've known Patrick since, more than 20 years when we were in leadership together, at San Antonio.
Really good,
So I'm happy to have a conversation one-on-one. This is not about hiding what I feel. I don't think many judges are doing that. In fact, I would say I have more of a problem with judges who are leaning into the politicizing of our judiciary and being too political when they run, because I think they are adding to the loss of confidence in the judiciary. We are so polarized as a nation, we are losing faith that anyone can be impartial, right? And it is up to judicial candidates to stay above the fray and make sure that people see that no matter what my political ideology is, I'm gonna do what's rooted in the law.
We're supposed to call out evil, and so the only thing I want to say there is, if we're the virtuous ones, then it's not enough just to be virtuous, right, Pastor? You got to call out evil on the other side. You got to call it out, and I don't see that being called out.
Well, but I don't think it's just on the other side. I think as Republicans, we have started to politicize our judicial candidates,
Call it out.
right?
I think that we really like traditional.
Yeah.
And I think just some of the things that we and maybe voters would like to hear is, I believe the Constitution is not a living document, 100% for the law.
Yeah.
And I want to enforce the law, like you said that.
Yeah.
And just some overall things like you're American, you honor the Constitution, okay, your traditional values, let's go. Something,
Yeah.
not nitpicking,
Yeah.
but overall giving us a clue that you really would enforce the law and not legislate from the bench.
Yeah.
Because I think one of you actually spoke one of the issues that, I've been conservative my entire life. And I can remember, like, my earliest memories as a conservative is being let down by judges who were Republican, right? You vote straight ticket Republican, and then this guy comes out and does something, you're like, how are you Republican? How were you appointed by a Republican? And so, I understand the tension there, because you don't want to be disqualified on a case, and you don't want somebody to come back and cause problems because you said, well, this is how I would. But how do we, as Republicans, how are we informed voters?
Well, but I also want to make sure you understand, I am telling you that if I'm on the bench and the law does not allow me to make the ruling that I personally would like to make, I'm going to follow the law, right? And so that if you want the law to be what you want, the answer is the legislature, not getting judicial candidates that agree with you that are going to do what they want to do on the bench. That's not the answer. Because if we do that when we like the judge, we have to accept it when we don't like the judge. Once those walls are down, they're down, right? And what I'm saying is, I'll tell you what I agree with and what I don't, and you can make a decision based upon whether you like my beliefs. But when I'm on the bench, the issue is you've got to have the laws in place that allow me to do the right thing. And I think what we've started to do, if we started to look at a decision, and as lay people say, oh, we don't like that decision, they must not be Christians. Well, no, it's whether the law allowed them to make the decision.
Well, but not to be here, I'm just pushing back
Yeah.
a little bit. I don't have a lawyer, I have theology, so
Yeah.
I'm not qualified. But the problem isn't the law, the problem is the interpretation of the law, right? And
There is, yes.
There are problematic interpretations that most, like, when you look at it, you're like, that is obviously not what that means, right?
Yes.
So, and every time we see one of these findings, they come down, we're like, how is that possible? How do you get there?
Yeah.
So how do we, as Republicans, like, it's one thing to say, well, I will make sane decisions based on what the text says, right?
Yeah.
but how do we know what that means? Is I guess what all of us are trying to get
And,
to.
and that's where it's not a specific issue, what I believe, it's who I am and what are my values, what are my principles, what's my faith. Those are the general questions that absolutely any judicial candidate should be able to answer. It's when you get into specific questions on specific types of cases that we get in trouble. I will tell you, the only thing that has got me through my life in the last year after losing my child is my faith. So if there's any question about my faith, I can have a conversation about that. But it's also about traditional values and principles. And I think with family law jurisdiction and criminal jurisdiction especially, that is extremely important because though you're right, those principles and values come into play when you interpret the law, when you determine what a reasonable person is. My reasonable person is very different than my Democrat opponent's reasonable person, right? But that's where I think we need to keep the conversation at values, principles, and faith
So
instead
go
of
there,
specific
Lori,
issues.
60 seconds or less, values, principles, and faith, or faith, doesn't have to be in that order, faith, values,
Yeah.
principles, and values. Tell us about that real quick.
I would say, well, obviously, my faith is extremely important to me. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for my faith. Faith and gratitude. I lost my son last year in downtown San Antonio, killed by gang members, right? You don't get over that without faith. And I'll tell you, be honest with you, my husband's struggling with his faith because of that very incident, right? And I pray for him every day that he will find his way back. But in terms of values and principles, I was raised by a family that taught me that hard work, honesty, integrity, standing up for what you believe in, that your place in this world is not just in your circle, but to make the world a better place. And I teach that to my children, that we are not here just to be happy, or we are here to use our time wisely to leave the world a better place when we leave it. Those are generally what I live by.
Thank you, Lori. Appreciate you coming and making time for us.
Yeah.